The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the new house, catching on the polished marble and gleaming stainless steel. The aroma of fresh coffee swirled in the air, mixing with the faint scent of lilies from the centerpiece on the kitchen island. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. The wedding had been perfect, or so I thought. My husband, Marcus, was still asleep upstairs, oblivious to the world outside our honeymoon bubble. I leaned against the counter, savoring the silence, the light, the sense that life was finally beginning for me. I had never felt so free, so untouchable, so untethered from the past that had shaped me. For years, I had played the part of the humble nonprofit coordinator, a life I had curated carefully so no one could sniff out the truth. My grandfather's fortune, a $50 million company called Genesis Legacy, was mine. But no one, not even Marcus, knew. I wanted to find someone who loved me, not for my wealth, not for the power it could buy. I had found Marcus, or so I believed. I hadn't expected betrayal to arrive so quickly. The back door slid open with a soft click, and my moment of peace shattered. I jumped, my heart skipping a beat, as two figures stepped into the kitchen. One was my new mother-in-law, Brenda, not in the floral dress she had worn at the wedding, but in a tailored black business suit that made her look as sharp as a blade. Behind her followed Marcus's sister, Chloe, whose high heels clicked on the marble floor like a metronome counting down to doom. I hadn't even known she had a key. Amani. Chloe. You're both here early, I said, trying to keep my voice light, forcing a smile. Marcus is still asleep. Brenda walked past me without a word and settled at the head of the kitchen island. Her smile was gone, replaced with a rigid mask of cold authority. I'm not here for a social visit, she said. Her voice was smooth but contained a steel undertone. Sit down, we have business to discuss. Chloe remained standing, surveying the kitchen as if she owned the place. Her eyes glinted with condescension and she smiled, small, sharp, mocking. You look very comfortable here, she said. Don't get too used to it. She placed a thick folder on the countertop with a thud that echoed in the spacious kitchen. My pulse quickened as I reached for it. What is this? I asked, my voice catching slightly. Brenda's patience was thin. A legal transfer, she said crisply. Marcus told us all about that little trust fund your grandfather left you. Very cute. But now you're part of this family. Your assets? Marcus needs them. I signed the papers just like he asked. I froze, the folder trembling slightly in my hands. My grandfather's warnings echoed in my mind. They will smile in your face and try to take it all. Love is the mask of greed. I don't understand, I whispered. You want me to give Marcus control of my inheritance? Chloe's laugh was sharp, cruel. Oh, sweetie, stop being dramatic. We're not asking, we're telling. Standard procedure. Now sign it. The folder was thick, each page heavy with legal jargon that made my head spin. This is about fiduciary control? The Elias Trust? I read aloud, disbelief washing over me. You want me to hand over everything my grandfather set up for me? Brenda leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. What's complicated about it? You get married, you join your lives. That includes finances. You weren't planning on hiding this from us, were you? That's not the kind of wife you're going to be. I could feel the cornering pressure like a physical weight. My throat tightened. It's not that, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I just didn't expect this today. It's a lot to take in. Chloe's sigh was sharp, like a whip cracking in the air. We don't have all day. Marcus has needs. This family has financial goals. Your little fund can help secure a down payment on a proper investment property. Just sign it, Amani. It's simple. I stared at the black pen she slid across the marble. The silver clip gleamed, and a sudden memory hit me with the force of a punch. I was 21 again, sitting in my grandfather's study. The scent of leather and cigar smoke filled the air. He had leaned back in his enormous chair, pushing a thick, leather-bound folder across his mahogany desk. "This is it, Amani," he said softly, eyes serious but warm. $50 million, and a target on your back for the rest of your life. I can't, I had stammered. "You can and you will," he said. "But you must be smart. They will come for it. Friends, men, even family. They will smile and pretend to love you, but it's the money they want, not you. That's why I set up a fortress, a trust, and a trap." His slow smile was unsettling, yet comforting. "Anyone who tries to force or trick you, greedy people, will trigger the trap. The law will protect you when I cannot." My pulse returned to the present, and the kitchen felt colder. Brenda was tapping her foot. "Are you deaf, child? Sign the papers." Fear vanished, replaced with a hard, icy clarity. My grandfather's trap clause was no myth, it was a weapon, and these women were walking right into it. My eyes scanned the document again. They were after $500,000, a small holding account, thinking it was the entire fortune. They had no idea about Genesis Legacy, the $50 million parent company that truly held the keys to my power. A flicker of amusement crossed my face. They had orchestrated an elaborate, cruel charade for a fraction of what they thought they were stealing. They had underestimated me. Footsteps on the stairs made my head snap up. Marcus, finally awake. He emerged, stretching, oblivious to the drama unfolding below. Brenda and Chloe froze, caught between greed and fear. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just my inheritance. They had just activated the trap my grandfather had meticulously built. And now, the game had truly begun. I set the folder down slowly, deliberately, letting my gaze linger on Brenda. "I think we need to talk about this carefully," I said, my voice calm but laced with steel. "Because the way I see it, someone's about to learn a very hard lesson about greed." And in that moment, I knew my life had changed forever. But this time, I was in control. The house felt different now. The morning sunlight, once warm and welcoming, seemed harsh, almost accusing. The air smelled faintly of coffee and anticipation. I leaned against the counter, folding my hands over the thick folder of documents Chloe had shoved at me earlier. The pen gleamed on the marble countertop like a silver sword, daring me to strike, or be struck. Brenda and Chloe hadn't left. Of course they wouldn't. They thought they had me cornered, thinking I was weak, naive, and terrified of confrontation. That was their first mistake. I took a slow, deep breath, letting the memory of my grandfather flood my mind. They will come for it. Friends, men, even family. They will smile in your face, tell you they love you, but it's the money they want, not you. Those words no longer scared me. They were a roadmap, a blueprint for the battle ahead. Brenda leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Amani, you're not going to make this difficult, are you? Just sign the papers. Marcus is counting on you." I allowed a small, calm smile to cross my lips. Difficult? No. But smart? Yes. That's exactly what I intend to be. Chloe's high heels clicked as she stepped closer, her expression icy. "Smart doesn't mean taking forever to sign a simple document. You know, in law, time is money. And in our family, we don't waste either." I picked up the folder, flipping through the pages deliberately, my fingers tracing the dense legal text. "Simple, huh? Let's see," I murmured, pretending to read, my mind working faster than they could imagine. Their arrogance blinded them. They didn't notice how my grandfather had designed this trap to turn greed into self-destruction. I paused at a clause, tracing my finger along the lines. Any attempt to coerce, manipulate, or otherwise induce the trustee to transfer assets in a fraudulent or unauthorized manner shall activate a legal investigation into the offending party's assets and finances, as per the Elias Trust Trap Clause. Ah, just as Grandpa promised. Do you want to read that out loud? Chloe sneered. Because I assure you it's all very standard. Legal formalities. Nothing complicated. I looked up slowly, my eyes locking onto hers, letting the weight of silence fill the space. You really think this is standard? I asked softly. This clause, this one here, it's not just for show, it's binding. Anyone attempting to seize or manipulate the trust is putting themselves at enormous legal risk. Brenda's hand twitched on the counter. Amani, don't try to intimidate us with legal jargon. We've been around law our entire lives. Marcus told us about this trust, and we know what it entails. Just sign it. I let the folder fall closed with a soft thud. I see, I said, tone light, almost teasing. You've spent so much energy scheming over $500,000, thinking it's the entire fortune. Did Marcus show you the statement? Or were you working off an old decoy? Both women froze, their faces betraying a fraction of doubt, just enough to reveal cracks in their confidence. Yes, $500,000, I continued, stepping closer. My voice was calm, but each word was precise, like a scalpel. A sum that might feel substantial to someone thinking they're clever, but it's not the whole picture, is it? You didn't know about Genesis' legacy, did you? 50 million tucked safely away, protected from, well, people like you. Chloe's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I smiled, a deliberate, controlled smile. I'm saying, you've already activated the trust trap. Your attempt to seize control over that account, to manipulate me into signing over what you think is my inheritance, you've done exactly what Grandpa predicted. You've exposed yourselves. The legal mechanism is now triggered. Investigators will be looking at everything. Brenda laughed nervously. That's absurd. You can't. Can't, I echoed, my tone dropping slightly, sharper now. You already did. Look at the clause. You coerced, you manipulated, and you tried to deceive. The legal system doesn't require me to sign anything to start an investigation. Your greed has done it for me. Chloe's face paled, the carefully constructed mask of superiority cracking. This isn't how it works. That clause, it's just what? I interrupted gently. A trap? A fortress? Exactly like Grandpa warned me about? Yes, exactly. Brenda's posture stiffened. You're bluffing. I shook my head slowly. I'm not. And you don't know who you're dealing with. You think you've married into wealth, into control, but the real power was never in your hands to claim. Not with me. Not now. A tense silence filled the kitchen. The only sound was the faint hiss of the coffee machine, brewing obliviously as if nothing had changed. I leaned in slightly, letting my gaze sweep over both women. And Marcus? He doesn't even know the full extent yet. You've been playing a game thinking he's your partner in this little scheme, but he's only ever been a pawn in a much bigger picture. And I promise you, it's about to become very clear who really controls this family's finances. Brenda's lips pressed into a thin line. Chloe's nails tapped against the marble, faster now, betraying rising panic. They had underestimated me, entirely, and I had all the time in the world to make them pay attention. Then, I shifted the conversation subtly, like a chess player moving a piece to bait the opponent. Now, I said softly, let's discuss what's really important. Your actions have consequences, and my grandfather's trust was designed to protect me from people like you. So perhaps we can settle this legally, civilly, without anyone making bigger mistakes than necessary. Chloe inhaled sharply, her lips twitching. You think you're clever, but Marcus is asleep upstairs, I interrupted, almost casually, and when he wakes, he will see everything as I choose him to see it. You, on the other hand, have already walked into a trap you cannot walk out of. The investigators will start at the $500,000 account, but they won't stop there. Everything will be scrutinized. Your assets, your transactions, your business dealings. You've already made the first move. Brenda opened her mouth, but no words came. She had no idea how thoroughly she had underestimated me. She and Chloe had orchestrated an entire wedding, entire facade, built on assumptions and greed, and none of it touched the real fortune. I let my smile linger just long enough to feel the power shift solidly into my hands. Perhaps, I said lightly, you should take a seat. There's a lot to discuss, and you're going to want to listen carefully, because this isn't about $500,000 anymore. It's about who controls the game, and right now, that's me. Chloe's heel clicked sharply as she stepped back. Brenda's hands fisted at her sides. The room vibrated with tension, the kind you only feel when people realize they are outmatched and the game has already started, without their knowledge. I turned my attention to the folder on the counter. Slowly, deliberately, I reopened it. My hands moved as if caressing the weapon my grandfather had left me. The $500,000 account was small potatoes. Genesis Legacy, the $50 million parent company, remained untouched, unseen. And the trap? It had begun snapping shut. The legal investigation would start soon, quietly, invisibly. I would watch as their world unraveled, not out of cruelty, but out of justice. They had smiled in my face, thinking they could manipulate me. They had tried to claim what wasn't theirs, and now they would pay the price for their greed. The sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs. Marcus, finally awake, wandered down, still in his crisp white shirt, looking like the innocent partner they had all counted on. He paused at the kitchen doorway, sensing the tension, confused by the cold stares and the unspoken threat in the room. "Good morning," he said, yawning. What's going on?" I glanced at him, letting the soft warmth of my grandfather's lessons guide my words. "Morning, Marcus. Let's just say, your family's been trying to negotiate something without knowing the rules. And the rules were set a long time ago. They just don't know it yet." His brow furrowed, confusion and concern battling on his face. I smiled inwardly. Perfect. He would soon learn the truth. But the truth would be mine to reveal, on my terms. And just like that, Chapter 2 of The Trap had begun. The fortress my grandfather had built was alive and working exactly as he had designed. I leaned back, calm, collected, and almost amused. My husband, my fortune, and my enemies, all pieces on a board I controlled. And I intended to play the game until victory was absolute. The morning passed in an eerie quiet. Marcus had retreated to the study, still half asleep, unaware of the legal storm swirling just beneath the surface. Brenda and Chloe lingered in the kitchen, their faces masks of forced composure, but I could see the cracks in their armor. Their greed had made them reckless, and now the first tendrils of the trap were beginning to coil around them. I poured myself a cup of coffee, letting the rich aroma ground me. My grandfather's lessons echoed in my mind, each one a lifeline in this delicate dance. They will come for it. Smile in your face, pretend to love you, but it's always about the money. Let them act, and the law will protect you. I had to be patient. The $500,000 decoy account was small, but it had served its purpose. It baited them into attempting a fraudulent transfer. Now, quietly, the legal mechanism was beginning its work. Brenda cleared her throat. "Amani, perhaps we should talk about this like adults. This misunderstanding can be cleared up quickly if you just—" "Misunderstanding?" I interrupted, my voice calm, almost gentle. "You tried to coerce me into transferring control over my trust. That's not a misunderstanding, Brenda. That's fraud. And according to the Elias Trust Trap Clause, It triggers an automatic legal review of the offending party's assets. Her eyes widened, and she glanced at Chloe, who was frowning sharply, tapping her long nails against the marble countertop. Their faces flickered between anger and fear, a reaction I savored silently. "You're bluffing," Chloe said. Her voice was tight, sharp. "You have no proof. No one's going to—" I smiled. "Oh, I don't need to provide proof. The clause is self-executing. Your attempt to manipulate me is recorded, witnessed, and documented in your signatures and actions. I didn't have to do anything except allow you to show your true colors." Brenda's hands clenched into fists. "This is ridiculous. Marcus will handle this. I shook my head slowly. "Marcus? He's only just waking up to reality. He doesn't yet know the full extent of Genesis' legacy, but when he does, he'll see the difference between what you tried to take and what truly belongs to me. And the best part? He will see it on my terms, not yours." Chloe's face paled. You think you're in control?" I poured another cup of coffee and leaned casually against the island, letting my calm presence fill the room. "Control isn't about what you think you can take from me. Control is knowing exactly what you have, exactly what they're capable of, and letting them stumble into consequences. Right now, the investigation is quietly beginning, and all you've done is trigger it." Brenda opened her mouth, but no words came. She could feel the walls closing in. Her greed, the very thing she had relied upon to manipulate me, was now the instrument of her potential ruin. I took a step closer, softening my voice. "Look, I'm not cruel. I'm just smart. Grandpa warned me about people like you, and now you're discovering what it means to underestimate me. It's a lesson you might remember for the rest of your life." Chloe's nails tapped louder. "You can't just manipulate an investigation. This is my family. You can't." I held up my hand. "Shh. Let's see how the law handles this before you speak. The trap is not mine to wield. It's already working. And right now, you're moving through it blindfolded." Brenda's jaw tightened. You think you're clever. But Marcus? He'll see through this eventually." I tilted my head, considering her words. "Perhaps. But he'll see through it as I allow him to. And by the time he does, the consequences of your actions will already be in motion. The law doesn't care about intention, only action. And your actions have consequences." Chloe's face twisted in frustration. "You think you can just control everything? We built this family together. We should—" I laughed softly, the sound calm, icy, deliberate. "Built this family together? No, Chloe. You built illusions. You constructed a fragile castle of greed and expectation, thinking I wouldn't notice. I noticed, and I acted accordingly. The castle is now under siege, and you don't even know it yet." The tension in the kitchen was palpable. Brenda's foot tapped, Chloe's nails drummed, and all around me, the air seemed to hum with the weight of impending consequences. I pulled the folder closer, flipping through the pages again, showing a casual familiarity, as though I were merely reviewing morning documents. Inside, the documents detailed the legal mechanisms my grandfather had put in place, the contingencies, the clauses, everything designed to protect me from manipulation and greed. Brenda's voice broke through the silence, sharp and trembling. "You— you're making this personal." I shook my head. "No, Brenda, this isn't personal. This is legal. And when law intersects with greed, the consequences are very clear. You've chosen this path. All I did was allow it to unfold." Chloe's lips pressed together. You think Marcus is on your side?" I smiled, the corners of my lips curling slightly. "Marcus? He will be, eventually. But right now he's unaware of the game. That's why patience is key. You two acted impulsively. I act strategically. That's the difference." Hours passed. I sipped coffee, letting the weight of observation fall on Brenda and Chloe. Every gesture, every glance they made betrayed their rising panic. They were realizing, slowly, painfully, that they had misjudged me. I remembered my grandfather's words again, clear in my mind. They will come for it, let them. But always let them stumble into the consequences themselves. That was the beauty of the trap. It required no aggression from me, only patience, observation, and precision. By late afternoon, Marcus emerged from his study, fully dressed now, his eyes blinking in confusion as he surveyed the tense scene. Amani, what's going on? Why are they still here? I smiled at him, calm, confident, powerful in a way I hadn't felt before. Good question, I said. Let's just say, your family attempted to manipulate the trust fund, and they've just learned a very important lesson about consequences. Marcus frowned, his brow knitting in concern. Manipulate? I don't understand. Not yet, I replied softly, leaning back and letting the tension settle like a cloud. But soon, everything will become clear. And when it does, you'll understand exactly why your mother and sister need to be very careful about who they try to deceive. Brenda and Chloe exchanged a panicked glance. They were starting to understand. The trap had been activated, the investigation underway, and every move they made would be scrutinized. I turned my attention back to Marcus. Don't worry, I said, my voice softening. You're not a pawn. You're part of the game. But it's my game, and I intend to win. The day ended with a tense, fragile calm. Brenda and Chloe had retreated slightly, forced to reconsider their approach. Marcus, still unaware of the full extent of my inheritance, remained cautiously curious. And I? I sipped the last of my coffee, smiling quietly to myself, knowing that the trap had begun to work exactly as my grandfather had intended. The fortress he built around me was alive. The first snare had sprung, and all those who sought to take what was mine were about to discover just how costly greed could be. The house had grown quiet after the confrontation that morning, but beneath the surface, the storm was brewing. Brenda and Chloe were no longer brazen. Their faces had hardened into masks of calculation, but I could see the tension flickering beneath the surface. Greed had left them exposed, and now, all I had to do was let the trap tighten around them, slow and deliberate. Marcus had retreated to the study again, claiming he needed to think, though I suspected part of him was trying to process the revelation that his family had overstepped boundaries they didn't even understand. I followed him briefly, nodding at him with a quiet reassurance. Don't worry, let me handle this, I said, my voice calm, even soothing. He nodded, trusting me in a way that warmed my heart, though I would soon test that trust to ensure he was truly my partner and not an unwitting pawn. Once I returned to the kitchen, Brenda and Chloe were sitting stiffly at the island, their posture rigid, their expressions betraying calculation. They were trying to regain composure, but desperation had a way of showing itself in subtle movements, fingers tapping, heels clacking impatiently, a tightening of the jaw. I could see it all, and I smiled quietly to myself. I suppose we should talk about what happens next, I said, pouring a fresh cup of coffee and letting my voice carry casual authority. You've made a few choices this morning that will have consequences, as you might have realized, but I'm generous. I'll give you a chance to adjust. Brenda's lips pressed into a tight line. Adjust? You mean undo this? No, I said gently, letting the word hang in the air. Undoing is impossible. What has been done. But adjustment, understanding, learning the rules of the game before you make further mistakes, that is something you can do, provided you're careful. Chloe's sharp laugh broke the tension, though it was nervous. You think you're clever, don't you? You think you can manipulate this entire family? I smiled, calm and deliberate. Manipulate? I said, tilting my head. No, Chloe. I simply understand how people operate. I observe. I allow their own actions to reveal their character, their intentions, and then I let the consequences of their decisions unfold naturally. That's all. Brenda's foot tapped faster, her patience thinning. You're making this personal, she said, her voice low, tense. You have no idea what you're getting into. Oh, Brenda, I said, leaning casually against the counter. I've been preparing for this my entire life. My grandfather didn't leave me a fortune just to be taken advantage of by people who smile in my face while holding knives behind their backs. And you, my dear, have just shown me exactly what I'm dealing with. Chloe's nails tapped against the counter. You can't control this. Marcus will see the truth, and he'll— You mean your family's version of the truth? I interrupted. The truth you've tried to construct to deceive me? Marcus will see what I choose him to see, and by then, the consequences of your actions will already be in motion. You're already in trouble, and you haven't even realized it yet. Their faces flickered with fear, though neither of them admitted it. I could see the panic hiding behind forced composure. This was the exact reaction I had hoped for. Their arrogance, their assumption that money gave them entitlement, had been their undoing. I decided to test the waters further. Let's do a little thought experiment, I said lightly. Suppose someone tried to coerce you into transferring a sum of money that isn't theirs, fraudulently, coercively, manipulatively. What do you think would happen? Brenda frowned. That, that's not the same as what we did. We were, we were just trying to help Marcus manage his finances properly. I raised a brow, letting the silence stretch between us. Help? Is that what you call attempting to manipulate the trustee of a trust into relinquishing control over an account under false pretenses? That's what you did this morning. That's exactly what the trust clause was designed to prevent. And by doing so, you've triggered an automatic review of your assets, financial history, and transactions. Chloe's eyes widened, but she quickly masked it with a scowl. You're bluffing. That clause isn't— It can't be triggered automatically. I laughed softly, the sound quiet but sharp. It can. And it has been. All you had to do was act on your greed. No effort required on my part. The law is already moving, quietly, invisibly. And the consequences? They're already beginning to ripple. Brenda's hands clenched, her knuckles white. You're playing games with us. No games, I said, my voice soft, deliberate. This is reality. The consequences of greed. And your attempt to take what isn't yours has set that reality into motion. I could feel the power shift solidly into my hands. Every moment they spent here, every breath they took, reinforced my advantage. They had acted recklessly, blinded by assumptions and desire. Now, they were in a position where I could guide the outcome entirely. I decided it was time to start subtly manipulating their interactions. You know, you two don't see it yet, but you're on opposing sides in this little scenario, I said lightly. Brenda, you're aggressive, always seeking the immediate gain. Chloe, you're cautious, calculating, but neither of you has the full picture. And that is going to cause friction. Chloe's eyes flickered, a momentary crack in her composure. What are you saying? I smiled softly. I'm saying that you've already begun to mistrust each other without even realizing it. That mistrust will grow. You'll second guess, you'll argue, you'll panic, and meanwhile I'll remain calm, watching, letting the consequences unfold. This isn't just about money, it's about control. And right now, I control the board. Brenda's foot tapped faster, her fingers drumming against the counter. You're trying to split us, turn us against each other. I shrugged lightly. I'm simply observing the natural outcome of your choices. You've acted on greed and deception. And when people act from those motives, conflict is inevitable. I'm not forcing it. I'm merely letting reality play out. Hours passed. The tension grew thicker with each passing moment. Brenda and Chloe whispered quietly to each other, trying to strategize, but every word was carefully measured. Every gesture was scrutinized, both by the other and by me. They were trapped, moving within a web of their own making. I decided to escalate subtly. "You know, Marcus is still unaware of the full truth," I said, pouring another cup of coffee. "When he finds out, he'll need to make a choice. Will he side with his family, or with the person he married?" Chloe's nails clicked against the counter faster. Brenda's jaw tightened. I could see their panic rising, their composure slipping. Perfect. This was exactly the reaction I wanted. By the evening, the first small tremors of panic had set in. Emails would soon arrive, investigators would quietly review financial transactions, and the first whispers of the legal trap would start reaching them. Their entire scheme, based on assumptions and greed, was already unraveling. I leaned back against the counter, calm, confident, and almost amused. The fortress my grandfather had built was alive and working, and the players who had tried to deceive me were stumbling into the trap themselves, blind and unaware. Marcus emerged from the study again, rubbing his eyes. "Amani, everything's different," he said softly. "I don't understand what's going on, but I trust you." I smiled at him. "Good. Trust is essential. And patience, Marcus. Patience will reveal everything." As I watched Brenda and Chloe exchange panicked glances, I realized just how powerful the trap was and how completely I had taken control of the game. The $500,000 decoy had done its job. The legal investigation had begun. The family had underestimated me entirely. And they would soon learn that underestimating Amani Elias was a mistake they would never forget. The morning light slanted through the living room, casting long shadows across the polished floors. I sipped my coffee slowly, the warmth grounding me as I reviewed the sequence of events that had unfolded over the past few days. Brenda and Chloe had already started to feel the weight of the trust trap clause. Emails from investigators had quietly begun to arrive, tracing their financial transactions, scrutinizing their assets, and quietly flagging inconsistencies they hadn't even noticed. The beauty of the trap my grandfather had left me was its subtlety. No theatrics, no loud accusations, just the law, acting as a silent, unyielding sentinel, triggered the instant they revealed their greed. And now, the consequences were beginning to unfold exactly as Grandpa had predicted. Brenda entered the kitchen first, her posture rigid, her voice controlled but brittle. "Amani, we need to talk." I looked up from my laptop, eyes sharp but calm. "We do," I said, closing the screen. "But let's be clear, this isn't a negotiation. This is a conversation about the consequences of choices, and yours have already set themselves in motion." Chloe followed, heels clicking sharply against the marble. You're not serious. You can't. You're manipulating." "No," I interrupted, letting the calmness of my voice cut through her panic. "I'm simply observing reality. You acted out of greed. You tried to manipulate the trust. You triggered the clause, and now the law is quietly doing its work. You're panicking because the consequences are in motion, and there's nothing you can do to stop them." Brenda's lips pressed into a thin line. This isn't fair. You can't." "Fair?" I repeated, my voice soft but icy. "Fair would have been for you to respect boundaries. Fair would have been for you to act honestly. Fair would have been not to scheme behind my back. But fair isn't the point. Consequence is." Chloe's hands twitched, betraying her growing desperation. "Marcus, he'll see this. He'll know." I let a slow, measured smile cross my lips. "Marcus already knows more than you think. He sees the truth through my eyes, and he understands who has acted in good faith and who hasn't, and he will act accordingly." At that moment, Marcus entered the room, fully alert, his expression unreadable. Amani. I've reviewed the documents, the emails, the messages. I understand now what's been happening. His gaze swept over Brenda and Chloe. And I understand who's been trying to manipulate the situation. The two women froze, panic now fully evident. They had expected Marcus to side with them, to protect their schemes, to justify their greed. Instead, he stood beside me, calm and steady, a silent ally who had been observing all along. Marcus, I said softly, placing a hand lightly on his arm. You didn't know the full story before, but now you do. This family underestimated me, and underestimated what my grandfather prepared. Everything you see, all of this, it's part of the trust he built, and the trap he set. Marcus nodded slowly. I see that now. And I trust you, Amani, completely. Brenda's face twisted in fury. You can't do this. You're manipulating. Everything. We're family. I shook my head, my voice calm but authoritative. Family doesn't mean entitlement. Family doesn't mean you can take what isn't yours. Family doesn't mean deception is acceptable. You made your choice when you tried to seize control over my trust, and now the law is responding. Chloe's voice cracked. You can't. They can't. They can, I said, cutting her off gently. And they will. All actions have consequences. Your greed, your deception, your attempts to manipulate me, everything is on record. Investigators are reviewing your assets, your financial history, everything that connects you to this attempt. And as they do, your reputation, your finances, and your plans will unravel. Slowly, legally, irrevocably. Brenda's hand clenched into a fist, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Chloe's usually sharp, unflinching gaze now wavered. They had walked straight into the trap my grandfather had designed, and there was no escaping it. I took a deliberate step closer to them. You see, the $500,000 account you tried to claim wasn't the real prize. It was bait. Genesis Legacy, the $50 million parent company, remains untouched, unseen, untouchable, protected by the very clause you triggered. You thought you were stealing from a corner store, when in fact you were poking the hornet's nest. Brenda gasped, her composure crumbling. You set this up. This trap. Yes, I said softly. Exactly as Grandpa warned. Anyone who tries to take what isn't theirs will be exposed. Anyone who acts out of greed will find themselves under scrutiny. And that includes both of you. Chloe's lips trembled. You can't. This is impossible. We were trying to help. Help? I repeated, the words slicing through the tension like a knife. Help is guiding honestly. Help is acting with integrity. What you did was deception, manipulation, fraud, and you triggered the trap yourself. I merely allowed it to happen. Marcus stepped forward, his presence steady and commanding. I think it's time you both understand exactly what you've done. The actions you took have consequences that extend beyond this house. You've triggered a full legal review, and every transaction, every attempt to manipulate, is under scrutiny. You're about to learn just how serious this is. The room was silent, heavy with the weight of realization. Brenda and Chloe's panic was now palpable, their arrogance replaced with fear. I let the moment linger. And now, I continued, my voice calm but decisive, we move forward. Marcus and I will handle Genesis Legacy together. You, on the other hand, have a choice. Cooperate, respect boundaries, and step back, or continue down this path and face the legal consequences of your greed. The choice is yours. Brenda's shoulders sagged slightly, the fight leaving her as she realized how completely they had underestimated me. Chloe's eyes darted nervously between us, trying to calculate a way out, but there was none. The trap had closed around them, and it was irrevocable. Marcus took my hand, his touch grounding, reinforcing the partnership and trust we had carefully built. Amani, I'm with you, he said softly. Completely. Let's finish this, together. I smiled, feeling the weight of power, justice, and clarity settle in my chest. The fortress my grandfather had built around me was complete, and the trap had worked exactly as he designed. Those who had sought to exploit me were exposed, their greed punished, not through cruelty, but through consequence. The morning sun slanted through the windows, casting long golden beams across the marble floor. The kitchen, once a place of tension and confrontation, now felt like a sanctuary. I had reclaimed control, not just over my inheritance, but over my life, my marriage, and the family that had dared to underestimate me. I looked at Marcus, then at Brenda and Chloe, and finally out the window at the world beyond our house. A calm certainty settled over me. The fortress was secure, the trap had sprung, and the lesson was clear. Never underestimate the woman who inherited not just wealth, but wisdom, foresight, and the patience to see greed for what it truly is. As I sipped the last of my coffee, I felt a quiet satisfaction. My grandfather's trust was more than money. It was protection, power, and foresight. And now, I was ready to wield it. Brenda and Chloe would never forget the day they smiled in my face while holding knives behind their backs. And neither would I.